record, so hopefully that'll allow you to turn it on.
Thank you. I'm sorry, who said they sent that request? Was that Kenneth?
Yeah, I
What
just
is
sent
that?
the request to the host so that way it would pop up and they could find the button.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's now being recorded. Yes, it is being recorded, so we can start.
So I would like to introduce our guest. Vasily Hall is a longtime Adobe automation specialist who's been working with Adobe Illustrator, scripting and production workflows since 2012. He began his career as a production artist where repeated find and replace tasks, large variant sets, and last-minute data changes made the limitation of a manual workflow immediately apparent. That hands-on production experience led to substantial focus on variable data replacement, artwork automation, and scalable illustration workflows. Over more than a decade, Vasily has worked across design, automation, and technical problem-solving roles, contributing practical scripting pattern and workflow approaches that have become part of a broader illustration automation knowledge base. His interest center rather on reducing repetitive labor, improving reliability in high volume artwork production, and helping designers rethink what is possible with data and structure, or treated as first-class part of the creative process. So you're ready to present?
Hey, let me just speak up and say that this is the monthly free meeting of the Austin Adobe User Group, and you can learn more about us at austinadobeusergroup.com. And Vasily, thank you for your presentation.
Can you guys hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's begin. So this is about find and replace in essence, and it's in an Illustrator. So if you have a workflow where you have to make business cards or something like that, well, some people prefer Illustrator for one reason or another. And what I'm going to showcase is kind of a very steep evolutionary climb. So I'll show the native panel a little bit, then I'll go through the variable importer really quickly, and then we'll go to the newest creative tool for variable replacement in Illustrator, Darty AI, the most accessible to an individual or enterprise business alike. And it's about doing a certain kind of variable data. Basically, we're capitalizing on the strength of Illustrator, and you'll find that this new plugin that I'll show you at the end, it's going to be much more than just variable data. It lets you create and put these artistic animations in place, and I'll show you plenty of examples, so you'll see what I mean. I also explain how today's AI can remove the bottleneck of data generation for making this art dance around how we'd like it to. And it can really open up some new products for some businesses and take them to new heights. And one of the industries particularly standing to benefit from this would be the packaging and the labels industry, where having good regulations is important, also the product copy, and it's something that can't be AI generated away because the point is it's got to be legally compliant and human verified and so on. So, well, we'll take a look at the very basics of this right now, where if you see my screen, you can see that this presentation from 2016, actually, from 10 years ago from the Dallas Makerspace, is a template document that looks like a food menu item, and it represents the items that the Adobe Illustrator program lets you natively replace using its built-in variable replacer. So here is the variables panel that comes with your Adobe Illustrator for absolutely free. And after the variable importer script was put in, Adobe has kind of put in this basics of that functionality with this button. So let's use the button right here. It produces a nice dialog box and it's all good. And when I do this, there we go. We got all of these variables inside of this panel, and they appear because inside of the data, we're going to open up this data really quick. And we'll see that in here, it has all of those as column titles. So with Adobe, we got those in, but with Adobe, we just didn't have the data sets. So basically everything comes named kind of generic like this. And when it comes in, you have to kind of do a lot of this manual work. So for example, if this was the name of the product, I'd have to click on this thing. I have to go here and attach it like so. And now it has a named object, and we can see that. And if there was two of these, would have two of these. And for some workflows, it's necessary to have 50 or 100 of them. And for some reason, they're not able to use the effect for that. So this gets really big, and it ends up slowing down the document because now, once it's populated, those are bound, which is great. But then the file size would get bigger. It's also going to slow down every time you're using this. So let's see how it works when we go to dataset number 1. Voila, it changes, and I can go next. And look at that, it's wonderful. So if I were to change everything, that'd be great. Let me change the graph one and see if I can locate that in the layers. Yeah, that's the graph. So I'll go to my graph, and then I click on this graph variable, and I make it dynamic. So this attaches it to the graph. But what is the graph? When we're talking about Adobe Illustrator's graph tool, it's a table that you put in. So how they do this is the variable importer said, hey, kind of like images, a graph is a state of things. It's a table, so we keep it in a separate text file, and we kind of reference it as an image. So there's the symbol, and Adobe went ahead and said, great idea, let's do that. So they did that, but you'll notice it's not quite gonna do anything, and that's because, well, it's not found anything right now because of how deceptively already this wasn't going to work. I already showed you the example of the text change. However, the image and the graph were not going to work because this is in fact not a regular spreadsheet. It's a variable importer, a forwarded spreadsheet. Basically, the variable importer provides us a way to set where you find these images and where you find these graphs. That's how we can keep the data really short and sweet and just have the name there. And it could be on a different person's computer. They would set their own path, so it still work for them. So already, to get the full benefit of this, I'm just gonna go to the variable importer script, and I'm gonna choose that same file over here. And over here in the file paths, we get to show it. Where are the images? It has a friendly thing here, which tells you the images aren't there. So before you start doing anything, you can check your work and see if the folders are there. So I'm going to choose the image, and I'm going to go all the way down. And please pardon the long journey, but I'll have to do this a couple of times, but only once, a couple of times. So over here, the makerspace, and we're going to the images. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to go down there and find the Google and find the makerspace. Oh yes, we've got the graphs. Now we can show the log, it's all there, and we can import the variables. And one helpful feature of the variable importer is that This, by the way, it's just for graphs. It's not necessary to click this unless graphs or visibility issues are giving you a problem. It's sort of a fix on a native Illustrator bug or issue, but as you'll see, hopefully with this new plugin, this will be not quite as interesting to fix this rather than to use the new available machine, the tool. So let's look at that. When the variable importer performed our data import operation, as you see, there was some configuration that actually did change these dataset names. And how this affects things is when we export it with the batch exporting feature, it lets us choose right over here the destination, and I think we can get it into how do we enable that thing? Datasets, that's right. So if the source is datasets, we get to use the file's name and the output name. I mean, we get to use that data record name as the file's output name. So if we go to dataset name, it'll be saying poster1.pdf or something. And whether it's a PDF or not, we'll control that and what action we record when we do the batch export. So now I got these imported, and the variable importer script also did the job of binding these things. So when you go next, it changes everything, even the graph, the single little bar, it can change. Well, that's that. As you can see, we can have these cool styles on here, and we can kind of do a lot of stuff that would be already a little tricky to do in this. If we had to do variable text, and a lot of people say, just use InDesign for that. Well, for a lot of cases, that's definitely the easiest way to just use the data merge. But sometimes we want to do something more complex. And when you have these extra styles and cool things, then it gets more necessary to want to use Illustrator and use some workarounds to try to tame this native Illustrator variable replacing feature. So a lot of people, about 500 every week, they go to the variable importer, they use it, they clone it, add maybe something new to it. Well, it never really saw any update for about 10 years, and its one responsibility was importing. So anything having to do with export, that was going to be some custom work, because everybody would have a different opinion. Plus, it would take a huge effort. Well, behind the scenes, there was an effort like this, and it was to create a new kind of variable plugin for Illustrator that has ultimate control over more than just images and text, but it could even affect your added fills and strokes. Also, it could change the document color mode and almost do pretty much what these actions do, but through a spreadsheet. So let's take a look at this new plugin. It's called Darty AI. Well, one big difference is that it's an extension and it can import CSVs, Excel files, and it can import Google Sheets directly with a click of a button. And it's very extensive in its low-level powers. And this is where, rather than, say, generative AI at face value, it can be more like a conduit. So something generates the data, and because it knows this documentation, it can turn that data into actionable steps inside of Adobe Illustrator. So this can be important for packaging and product kind of die line and labeling, but also it could be assets for games or other places where having vector control is important. Also, being on brand and leaving little to chance that needs to be under tight control, but still being able to have ultimate power over that control. So when I say tight control, it doesn't mean you're locked into something, but rather you have a much closer way to rein in all of your processes. Let's take a look at the very first example that I'd like to show using Darty AI for something that would be not trivial to do with regular Illustrator. So let me close this thing and open up the multicolor food plate. And if you like Illustrator or dynamic art, this is for you, but hopefully, even if you don't use Illustrator or if you're into video, maybe you can also see how having such control could be a workflow component and some peripheral aspect. Well, let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Let's go to the where is it? To the multicolor plate. So I'm going to open up this one. So I put everything on the Mac, and then I realized I must not use the Mac. I must use my Windows desktop. It is a little slower. Zoom does slow things down a little bit. I will say on my M1 little laptop, it works mega fast. But on here, we're definitely going to see a lot of latency. Just want to get you guys prepared for it. So let's go ahead and load from my history, because I've already loaded this before, the multicolor plate data. And in case it's not in there, that's fine, because I did it on the Mac. So I'm going to choose the data source, and I'm going to open up where it says multicolor text plate. And I'm going to open up the Excel file directly without any need to export a CSV or anything like that. And when I do so, it will show my rows and columns inside of this extension. You can get more information, and it can tell you hints if something it finds isn't right. All right, so let's hope all of those work. Those don't look that good, but they might be working. I actually forgot how it works. Let's see. So I'm going to turn on the preview mode, which now creates a copy of the document, so you can be very creative and you don't have to worry about your art being saved over. As you see, it says Darty Preview. And then you click on this thing, and as you see, it's true. What happened is that we replaced all of these characters with how this data can work, and they got different colors. They got the different colors for every single letter. It's not the same for those two records. And as we go down, we can see that we're able to control somehow the appearance of it. So the appearance of it has, in the layers, let's see. That's not that, but this bottom text and top text, they have this fill that has the offset path. That's right. So if I turn off, you see that offset path disappears. So this is able to be controlled by this plugin, different appearances, different strokes, and the picture, it can be totally different. So that's already something that native replacement doesn't do, which is do the colorization and have control over your styling. And we can talk about the data that went into creating this, but first of all, I want to show these results just in case Google Sheet formulas aren't that interesting. So let's go to another one example that I'd like to showcase. That would be the Bathysphere. It's a book publication. Here it is. So this was kind of a stress test for this tool to see how it would act when it's having to do a lot of blending modes and a lot of manipulation of things. So this is like a children's book, and I'm going to load its data right now, which is this data. Now this one takes a while to render, and I do have the results of it, but I will give you the slight advantages, actually the super powerful advantages of this particular workflow. Now imagine if you had to do the same book and it was in multi pages. That would be quite the long workflow, because you would have, maybe you'd want to make a change, and then everywhere you'd have to duplicate it, make sure it's there. And when you have only one page, you're able to take advantage of a lot of the blending mode stuff. So we have some artifacts going on in there. There's some layers that are there. What you'll notice is that as we go, and it's going to take a while to do these renditions, so I won't do them all, and I'll just pull out the rasters midway. When I clicked on this one, it's going to take it a few seconds. Maybe this with Zoom, it's going to be much worse. So it's going to put this artwork into a state. And one of them is, you'll see the bleed. The way these boxes are there and the way they overlap each other, it's also controlled with the data based on how down the submarine goes. As we make our way down, it's actually going to shift everything up, because this is the surface level and there's only spaces for 5 levels. So as this whole thing moves up, 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 it's going to reveal a bottom of the ocean level right underneath. So right now, as you see, it says a bathysphere. And also notice how we can control a particular range of the text. We can basically isolate through placeholder strings, text strings, these words, where you can now give them a style or a particular different font, as you can see here. And don't you love it? It's all totally vector. That's one of the joys of this, is that once you're able to create a timeless design plus a dynamic design, then it can be a source file for print and for digital signage, all kind of great applications. Because when you create it in a vector program, then you have that peace of mind that it's well portable to other places. All right, so as you see, it takes a while to go. Let's see, it's still doing it, because once we go down past some level, that surface will go vanish. And still doing it. All right, so here we go. As you see, now we have submerged. So that was my big reveal, is that now the surface is gone, and now revealed down here is the very bottom level right there. And some AI generated vector art was used in there and cleaned up a little bit. So as this thing goes down, it'll reveal some creatures, but because it takes a long time on this computer, and because we're doing Zoom, I'll just do the rasters. But suffice it to say, on a more powerful computer, it's a real joy to watch, because all this stuff takes place much quicker. And then you can really
Vasily,
see. Yeah,
may I ask a question? One of the
yeah.
people in the chat room, Sherry, asked a question. She's asking, why is DARTY white text appearing blurry on the window?
Oh, where?
I don't
This?
know. I think Sherry doesn't have a microphone on her computer, and she always posts her questions in chat.
Is it this? Let me check. Yeah, it's on my other screen. Let me see if I can see the chat. Okay.
Sherry just said, on the window you're moving. Yes.
Uh, White text appearing blurry on the window. Oh, right. This text, is it this line right there?
Yes,
Oh,
she
yeah,
says.
it's because it's in demo mode.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it's there. So this has a feature where you're demonstrating it to a friend or some client. You can actually leave yourself private in the paths by putting on demo mode. So I hope that's the only blurry item, because if you see something else blurry that shouldn't be, please let me know. Oh yeah, and as I was mentioning, so let's just take it from the top with the rasters, where you can now see this was all pre-baked for you so that we can just go through it without waiting for the rendition. And just take my word for it, on the M1, it's singing along. So these guys appear, and as you notice, this submarine will go down, and it'll start turning on the lights at certain points. And then when we reveal that inner iris, it shows some new creature. So it starts going down. This text does change. And we can see that more text ranges are being affected. So we're now manipulating all kind of what looks like ambient light in there, and hiding and showing some effects, which are all of these lights and stuff. So that's that's one of the powers of this, is that once we have this book, we can change all the words in there and maybe change some other things, translate it to a different language, which this has the world ready font handling parameters there. So you can do one book in English, the next one could be in Arabic. It actually could be, because it can reverse all the text. Now that would have to be tested out for its designability, but that's one of the robust text parameter handlings of this plugin. And that was a really big file. So the next one I'd like to show is, so here, closing the preview document, it's going to close that. We're going to close this up. And another really good one to show you guys would be the one that's more practical for work. So for example, let's imagine that a packaging company has so many products, and they have done artwork, but they have many different takes on this. So it's kind of like a collection, and each little item, it can be special in its own special way. And you want to be in very precise control on that. So I'm gonna close this and go to my latest Google Sheet files and open up the PG Pert. So, and here we can see also evidence of the colorway generation using the AI, and I'll show you how. So first of all, I found an image online, and it had all of these products except for the last three. I created them myself, and I'll tell you how. So this is one per shampoo label, and when you click on here, it has different things that are pre-made. For example, in the layers panel, you'll see there's a top bar and it's revealed, but in the original state, when you reset, it's actually hidden, but it's still there. It's still in the layers panel. So, and on the other record, let's see, on this one, it has it not. It doesn't have it. So the deep clean, but then this other blue one, it gets it back again right there. But this is the anti-dandruff one for flake-free hair. And the one that's the lime looking one. So as you see, we're hiding and showing some elements because some text is in there and so on. But what happened was I just took this color from my tracings. I took this color that I got and I fed this into a ChatGPT, and I said, I'm now looking to make 3 new shampoos. And can you give me some colorways for those things? So it told me, yeah, here's some rows you can paste right into your data there. So let's see. I suppose whatever it pasted in, it worked, because I go to here and we got this kind of bronze looking one. That's what it was. And this one is kind of like the rose ruby looking one. And then finally, a wild one where it's more than a couple of colors in this combination. So all of that is there. And the main advantage besides, hey, look what I can do artwork through a spreadsheet, it is saving somebody out there it's saving some hours, for example. So here, let's go open up this in the Google, in the browser. And basically, as you can see, there are so many columns in here that are in charge of some things, that are manipulating the effect on a certain artwork. It's changing something. But the next step of this is how really cool it is to work with that ChatGPT or any other artificial bot helper to help us write the formulas, so that if somebody were to add a new product to here, it would be done much simpler. It would be adding a new item, and then the formulas would help fill in all the rest of the stuff, so that after some initial setup at a company, a graphic artist can control a lot of products single-handedly and very precisely. So let's go ahead and see how this plays out. We're going to just change one letter, as might be sometimes the case. You just have a product and you want to change the one letter. So we want to go and actually open it up as somebody who has the here we go. Let's see if we can change this right here with this S. And now when I click off of it, this has now updated. So let's go ahead and reload the data and see if we got that new text in here. Let's see here. Okay, you see there's the S. So now when I click on here, we're going to see that with a few click operation, we edited our data and we were able to change our whole artwork to comply with what our data should be. And while we're doing that, we're staying away from using the native variables, and any records are kept outside of our artwork so that it's not encumbering this file. And another implication is that really, once I've done this, if we go back to the original state of things, the template, it has just some elements in there. But if you think about it, all of these actual artworks, they live somewhere between the actual asset template and our spreadsheet data. And this is no more evident than in the following demo, which is pretty exciting. And it still works decently okay on this computer. And this is the shield. The shield was also another stress test project. And you'll see that it sort of pushed this to its limits. This is kind of much more than variable replacing at this point. It's going into procedural generation. In this template, there's only a few shapes in here to speak of. And when we load the shield data, we're going to go and find it in our recent files. I just need to locate it though. So let's see if it's in here. Well, I might have to go and open it up because that's the quickest way I can even find it right now. So shield data is there. And we can see what's going to happen when we click some of these records. They use some advanced concepts. You can import SVGs, and if you dealt with SVG files, maybe know that they are text, that are XML text. And one quirk of that output is that Illustrator will read those back in and turn those names that are some names of those shapes as layer names inside of Illustrator layers. And when that happens, Darty AI can instantly grab a hold of those and change them after the fact. And this is exactly what's going to happen in this demo. So let's go into preview. Let's make sure that it's, sometimes whenever Illustrator opens it up, it causes the saving asterisk. So no worries, I just gave it an extra little save. Okay, so now that we're in preview, I'll click through some of these, and I'm watching the chat too, so let me know if you have any questions about what you're seeing, what's taking place, or if you have any particular of these that's your favorite. So this is the first one, and it's good. It's actually going quite slow on here, but you see it still did it relatively quickish. But we can see what it's doing step by step. On the M1 Mac, it's really difficult. A lot of those pop in instantly, but in here we got a really good overview of what's going on. So now this looks a lot different than it first started. And we can also click back to the original document and see this is our original document starting state. And that's what it ended up being, kind of more embellished, more stylized. And it's got a mascot in there, plus it's got this chain going on here, and some knockout art in the back. Some raster-based effect is there, but a raster-based effect at scale with your control, especially over the resolution through the data. And I mean, it's as good as anything. So we have control over some of these. Let's go to the next one. And here you can see the chain forms at the bottom, but try to think of the common thing that's happening every time this happens. So as you see, the SVG got brought in, and the SVG, if I click with the A button on this right there, if I click on here, it says mascot coyote, and it has these layered shapes inside. So some of these shapes are only the eyes, and some of them are some other shape, and one is the creature. So combined and layered together, styled differently, together they make this kind of artwork. Okay, and it gets more fancy than that, as you'll see. We got some pendant going on. Let's see here. The colorization is colorizing the swatches that are as parts of graphic styles that are inside of these brushes. So no matter where, this is able to control the looks of things. And one that's kind of a totally different shape, got a little different style. So somebody that wants to make a lot of, for example, this could be processes that are high value items, and that there's not that many. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of mailers, car dealerships. This is more something your top clients, your loyalty rewards people. You know, this could be printed, or it could be used as some digital item that's NFT-ish, I'll say. But it's a personalized artwork that's unique for any reason, and it's spec. So here's the mascots being brought in, the effects, and so by now you may have noticed every time I click on here, these studs right there, they get changed into these rivets. And I'll tell you what that is. It's the same thing as the birds on the wire. Those are strokes. They get a special style on there that is like the dots. And it's kind of like a radial distribute, but a little different. And in here, when it's this kind of artwork, it serves largely the same purpose. So same way these are getting added as well, and a few others. So the chain gets actually formed between two of them, and in some cases, the pendant hangs down. So here, the pendant hangs down, the chain got randomly formed on here. It actually forms randomly, which it can be controlled, but I left it as that because it's more interesting. So this is a stylistic stress test of this. Also, it's demonstrating yet again that to have all of these in one file, it would be ginormous. So what if you need to just generate a couple of these a day, and maybe you get an order every couple of hours for one. So you don't need them all to be generated at once, taking up a long time, also taking up your storage space. Maybe you want to generate them just when you want them. And that is the advantage of having your whole beautiful artwork live in this distributed state where it's the template and it's also the spreadsheet data that you put in. So that's the shield, ladies and gentlemen. And do you have any questions so far? Nobody has any questions? Okay, so we're gonna move to another quick one that will show you some magic that is possible. How do you know what part of the spreadsheet will affect what in the Darty? Well, for that, there is this website's documentation. And by the way, you can go to the site to check out the different, you can view the video. You can also check out the different use cases that are the reason for its existence. Plus, you can read the FAQ to get answers to most common questions, such as what is Darty AI and what does it do? And also, does it work with Google Sheets and Excel files? And yes, it does. But at the docs, that's where you can go and view all of the different things that it can do, which it can do a whole ton. Yeah, so the free, let's see, it's super powerful as a free offering. Actually, the monetization part of it, it's just these credits that are for exporting, and you get 200 every month with a free tier. But even if like a lot of workflows, they don't even need to export something per se. For example, you may just want to switch to it, and then you just save it manually as a one-off. And basically, you have a state manager system where you can keep some kind of template with all this data. And once you have like a very big need and you want to automate having, you export a folder with 50 PDFs, and then each one has also a TIFF that's a 300 by 200, then that might be that could be a reason to want to get the basic tier or something, because that gives you like 2,000 monthly credits. Well, it also depends on what kind of work one does. So for example, if it's a company and they just do this all the time, then just saving 1 hour out of 2 hours, or reducing somebody's day by several hours, that would make it worth it maybe for them. And so far I've only demonstrated the free stuff. So the open source, it's not the open source, but it's the open documentation that makes it available. And right now the CLI, there are possibly feature requests that could be made, but basically the I mean, there's that missing automation of automatically taking it and driving it headlessly, I guess, or from externally. The question is, does this have a MCP or CLI support? And what I'm saying is that you can create data online and have it in the sheet. And oh yeah, I'll answer that next. So what you can do is have your AI agent create the data. The AI agent would be able to scan this robust documentation that is supposed to help out man and machine to get from this and start creating something that is useful right away. So to that end, there are these examples and things that both a human and agents should be able to ingest. So there's example CSVs plus a table of the parameters, and it's a matter of just associating that, hey, this is what you're working with, this is what you're doing, and this is how you want to do it. There are these three rows that are the learning mode. So for that, there is a special place dedicated that's called Getting Started. Let me go to it in a new tab. There's tutorials, and there is a Getting Started blog, which is supposed to help somebody new to get a sense of how the header works and how to create the rows. And then it can be a creative process. So for example, I did the bathysphere document, and it was so much fun because I was looking up this documentation, the whole time, and it was kind of frustrating sometimes, but it was a huge payoff when it worked. And then I was like, okay, so this does work. So then we can apply it to so many more possibilities. And that also happens to answer this next question. What's a concept/hurdle in Darty that you finally learned? I mean, I'm not sure if that is the question, but um, these things that it's doing that would take, for example, even the seasoned scripting person, that it would be non-trivial. So like if you want to manipulate the added fills and the strokes, so that would be like, even if you were doing scripting, that would be kind of difficult. Plus, say like you pulled it off, well, congratulations. It only works with just the one artwork. And that's because anybody can have anything. And unfortunately, this scripting is limited in its memory consumption and things like that. So this is where this plugin really comes in. So it overcomes these hurdles that have to do with being able to design things that you never, that you tried, maybe you were like, hey, I hope it does that. And you're like, oh no, with Illustrator, it actually, every time, like if you try to ever automatically add a new effect using actions, you're like, I can add an effect using, if I go here, let's say effect, and I want to record this effect, and I want to record it with this. So you record it, it lets you record it, and that's fine. And then you play it, and then guess what? It pops up this box. And then you're like, well, what's the point to record it if I have to click OK every single time and it does it 1,000 times? Oh no. So this really bypasses that. I would say that's a huge data/design combination challenge. There's for automation for 20 years, as long as it's been there, as long as actions have been recording and the menu items have been working like that, it's just everybody's designed around that. Now we can take our design in another dimension, so to speak. So let me just go to the very next one really quick, which will be the text. This is illustrating one of the crazy ones. However, this is something that maybe somebody can get inspired from and find some use in. This is our Expandomatic demonstration of how it can write something, it can apply some effects on there, but then it can go and flatten this and then kind of like nanobot, it can go in there and start dissecting and working with that artwork. So let's check this out. This is hopefully, does anybody do typography or any kind of things where you use a lot of fonts and you want to create drop caps or something that isn't very standard? All right, well, let's check it out and see what this thing is capable of. Let's go to Expandomatic Excel file and go through these records. This is a pretty intense file as well because it uses a knockout effect for this break through the wall look. And as you see me going through the records, it'll start breaking more of that wall and revealing stuff behind it. But you'll also hopefully notice the fact that these text elements get very special treatments in all the different records. So what is the Darty AI Expandomatic Text? Well, for now, we can see that there's some artwork in the back and stuff, but it surely did outline all the fonts, so oh well. And that's because, you know, to have these kind of things, yeah, you got to work with outlines. So the power of this, you start out editable and you can destructively create, you know, like it's not fully editable. There's no such font that has that. But say what? Was there a question? Okay. As you see, we can now grab that, and now all the text is completely different font, and we have a different style, and it looks funky, and it does more stuff. Plus, at the same time, all the while, it's interacting with that wall, keeps breaking more chunks out of it. Okay, and when it does so, yeah, it's applying some kind of blending lighting effect there, so it illuminates that there's some piping in there, some AI generated piping was there. So it says it was amazing possibilities. And then the next one, well, it's reverse. So another one, it was a different wave. And this one, it's this kind of wave, looking like a star. All right. So now we're getting more into the back of it. And as you can see, we're able to affect different characters. It's just with that, oh, those things worked. I mean, those things only worked well with the O because it's round, so it kind of could be a sunflower. So at the very end, there's this, and with data, I was able to work out how all the same template creates all of these looks, and it starts out like this, and then it only has these elements in there. So it starts out as editable text. Let's see, it's already been an hour, but the last thing I wanted to demonstrate was the birds on the wire, which is an example of the expandomatic strokes. So I can open it up in the recent files, which is this one. And we're going to open up the last data that I had for birds on the wire. So let's see if it's going to do it in a bit of a slow-mo for us, hopefully. I put it into preview document mode so I can start previewing my records, and let's see what we have. By the way, in this file, there's this clipping, but you can see there's some birds on here. These are all the birds right there. And what this Darty document sheet does is it's going to put them all on the wire, but it's going to do something smart. So we didn't have yet time to get into the spreadsheet and the AI part of it, but just you can basically download Darty, it's free, and you can start experimenting like this by using a Google Sheet or Excel and then asking to ChatGPT, basically like, so I want these to do something. What can I do with these documented methods that can help me achieve that goal? So I set out to want to put those on a wire, but have them be not hokey. Like if they have these feet, they should be on the wire and not floating down below, like slapped on there. And how can we do that? I was asking ChatGPT about it, and it was um, really helpful. And it told me that, well, I mean, I came up with this. I already looked at the documentation and I already knew that I could move each one. But where it helped me was I did it on the first bird, and I worked out all this, and I'm like, okay, so if it's this bird, it'll be this many pixels. So every time this pops up, I'll want to make sure to move it up, but only that one. And I set up this sheet so that when I change something, for example, let's say if I added a new column, watch all the data, watch every cell, see how it all changed? That's because I made sure it's random everywhere, and that's pulling some data from these columns. And this is my match table. This is how I can control every bird very precisely for my needs. So let's go and check out how these birds land. When I click on these records, if you can notice any movement, it pops them up, and then the ones that need the adjustment, they move up a little bit. So this one, it's just where it needs to be. And then when I click on this one, just where it needs to be. And this one, and those. So all of them are very accurately adjusted because of this self-adjusting data pretty much. And that's also kind of like the hurdle that was discussed earlier. So before, you could maybe make a script or you do some action or something, but then it would only work for this one thing, and and it would be such a pain to make. But this spreadsheet driven this makes it much easier and much more fun to create some project like this and then keep building on top of it. Question: can you move each bird once the spreadsheet places it? So here's the thing. Here's where, if somebody wants to get the most out of the free tier and how it's still useful for their life, if you can imagine this as running actions, but in a better way. So when you make a preview document, this is a real Illustrator document. You can go and save as and save it anywhere. And not only can you move it, I mean, you can see what it's doing and be very creative, and you can be like, okay, so I want to move it somewhere. So what I did, like, for example, first when it started adding them, it was adding them like this. And I said, well, that's no good. This bird is needing to be on the wire. So I went to Control Shift M and I said, okay, if I had to move this with data, how much would I have to move it every time this particular one comes up? So I did that, and I did a series of clicks to where I got the value there. And bam, I was able to then plug it right in and then just change something in here. So one of these numbers appeared. And then once it was working with this AI aided formula, so I was just asking this, hey, this thing needs to show this in the cell, and you show me something else. And it said, well, you need those dollar signs. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I took them out because I thought I was smart. So anyways, after a brief tussle, we worked it out. So ChatGPT and I were able to conquer the birds. And yeah, you can be ultimately creative. So check this out. You can do anything with this file, and then you can go right back to it. So sometimes, you don't need to be exporting all of these. For some workflows, it might just save you a lot of time for whatever you need to be doing. If you can take some elements, move them into place, maybe change their color, And then maybe afterwards in your workflow, you do a lot of manual post work, but maybe this gets you some of the way there. So if people use actions, chances are this thing can do what they'd like, and it can do probably even a lot more. It might take a bunch of spreadsheet stuff, and there would be plenty of documentation to look over. But hopefully with today's AI and these friendly blogs, that some users can start developing entirely new workflows and maybe even making whole new money with something that was just, prohibitively impossible before to do. So do you guys have any more questions, or do you have any more time?